Hello. Today we're going to talk about instrument families. How instruments get put into their different categories, their families. So there's two things that are kind of used to put instruments where they belong. First off, the way they look is part of it, and how they produce or create their sound. We have four main families of instruments. The brass family, the woodwind family, the string family, the percussion family, and there's really a family out there now with computers called the electronic family. But that works a little differently than some of these other ones because you're using computers to create sound. Now, the way they look is a big part of it, like the brass family. Okay, brass, they all kind of have the same look. They got this metal, okay, called brass. Looks kind of gold colored. And it kind of curves around. All of them kind of have a curve in there somewhere. Trombones are a little different because they have a slide, but most of them, like your trumpets, your tubas, your baritones, your French horns, they have valves that they push up and down. But all of them have a mouthpiece that comes off. Now, to create sound on an instrument, something has to move. Okay, and we call that movement vibration. Okay, vibration is a movement of sound. It's like a wave on the ocean. But these are waves you can't see. Okay, these are air waves. These are waves that we can feel. Like if you put your hand right here on your throat, you can feel movement in there when you talk, when you sing. Okay, because your vocal cords are moving, which are more of a muscle, but we call them a cord. But they're moving, they're vibrating. Okay, that's where your sound's coming from. Now to make an instrument vibrate, well, for brass, you've got to actually buzz your lips. That's the vibration. So, see, if I just blow, nothing happens. If I just blow, nothing happens. I gotta buzz it. Okay, that makes the vibration. Now, the faster I can make it vibrate, so if I tighten my lips, that makes it vibrate faster. That changes your sound. Okay, it gets higher because I'm making something move faster. Then if I push valves, okay, what I'm doing is I'm making the air circulate a little differently, and that changes the pitch as well. Now, believe it or not, there's a lot of math involved in creating an instrument. Because in order to make a trumpet that all work the same, they have to be built the same. And you've got to use certain math to kind of measure out things and make everything work the right way. Okay, it won't work if I'm just going to build a trumpet. You got to know the math to put an instrument together. Now, the woodwind family is a little different. So, some of the woodwinds actually use a piece of wood, which you call a reed. Okay, the reed is cut real thin. There's measurements to that too. There's your math again. And in order to make it work, it has to vibrate. So it's like if I take a piece of paper and I kind of blow across it. Okay, you're making that vibrate, making that sound. That's what's happening with the woodwinds. So your clarinets and your saxophones use that piece of wood. Oboes and bassoons use that wood as well, but they actually have two pieces of wood, double reed, to make it work. Now your flutes, they're a little unique in a way because yes, they're a woodwind instrument, and they kind of get put into that category because they used to always be made of wood. So it's like you're taking this right here and turning it into a big instrument. The whole thing was wood. Woodwinds also tend to be very long and skinny. So let's take this saxophone, for example. It's long, okay, but it does kind of curve up. Now, if I take my other saxophone, okay, you can see this long and skinny. Now, this is an alto. This is what we call a soprano. Because this is smaller, I know they look about the same size, but you got to realize this is bending and going up, so it's longer. So if you've got the same size, they would sound the same. Because this is bigger, it's going to have a lower sound. So your alto saxophones, okay, by using my lip to kind of help move this reed and vibrate it across, okay, by blowing through it and then moving my fingers up and down, I'm creating the notes and the sound. So I learn my fingers go. There's a lot more to push here than on a trumpet. Okay, so you got a lot more flexibility as far as moving fingers. Now, the difference is with the trumpet, though, is you got to really work those lips to get the notes. Here, I don't have to do that as much. I got to learn to move my fingers. So there's a different way of training yourself to play the instruments. Now, if I take my recorders, okay, that my third and fourth graders are using, so how the sound is working through these is when you're blowing, the sound is obviously going through the instrument. And as you push your fingers down, you make the sound move down farther. Therefore, you're stretching out the wave. So we've got that. So it doesn't have to go as far. Okay, here. You're going a little bit longer, a little bit farther. So I'm going to do this real quick for my students. Okay, don't sue me, Nickelodeon. Don't need to be monetized. Now, well, once again, soprano, just like the alto, okay, works the same way, but because it's smaller, it's higher sounding. Okay, a little bit different sound. Now, your percussion family is anything you can hit, strike, or shake to create sound. Okay, now, okay, technically that could be a percussion instrument. That's body percussion, right? But your drums, okay, your cymbals, maracas, percussion is probably the largest family out there, and they've got a lot of different looks to them. But if you can hit them, you can strike them, you can shake them, okay, you're essentially creating a percussion instrument. You're creating sound. Percussion is basically something that means percussive, hitting, okay, noise. So obviously sticks are used a lot for percussion instruments. Your snare drums, for example, what makes that sound is that buzz is that piece of, there's a chain underneath called a snare. So when you hit the top of the drum, you're actually making that snare buzz. And sometimes snare players will turn that off because that buzz, if somebody else is playing, okay, it's going to make that vibrate. Like if I played a tuba next to a snare drum, the sound of that tuba is going to actually vibrate that snare. It's very loose to the point where it can vibrate across that instrument. So, but yes, anything that can be hit, okay, it's percussion. Okay, that's your vibration. You're hitting to make the vibration. Now, some instruments fall into a couple different families. So before we get to the string instruments, let's just talk about that for a second. Harmonica, okay, it's made of metal, but because you're blowing through it, it's actually a woodwind instrument. That can confuse people sometimes. What is that? It's woodwind. Okay, because it's got inside it, it's got little tiny combs, as they call them, but they're all pieces of wood. So it's kind of like a bunch of these little reeds, okay, cut a certain way and put in here, but this looks like a comb. Looks like a comb you can comb your hair with. The saxophone actually is one of those instruments that falls into two different families because it's got the brass look, but it uses a woodwind. Okay, Adolph Sax was trying to create an instrument that would sound like the brass instruments, but with the flexibility of moving the fingers like a woodwind. And he didn't quite succeed in that, but it still made a very memorable instrument when he created it. Now, the last family would be the string family. Okay, anything that has strings on it kind of falls into the string family. So violins, cellos, harp, guitar. Now, the vibration is by hitting the string. So if I can move it up a little closer, see if it'll actually show up. Okay, that's your vibration. Now, since we're not blowing on it and moving fingers to change the sound, if we move the fingers here, as we go up, we're changing the shape, or the length rather, of where that vibration happens. So because it's closer, it's smaller. And just like my soprano was smaller than my alto, it played higher. When I put my finger down, well, it plays higher because there's less room to vibrate. And what's interesting about instruments when they vibrate is the fact that, like this is 440, but if I go right here, okay, that's the same note higher, that's an 880, and so that ends up making the vibration a little bit faster, and that's actually twice as fast as that one, because 440, 880. But your strings, obviously once you learn where patterns go. Okay, you can create a lot of interesting things with string instruments because you can put your fingers across multiple ways, which you can't do with saxophones and stuff. You've got a little more of a variety of sound, I guess, you can create within string instruments. One more thing about the string family is one of those crossover instruments, which would be a piano. Piano, some people call it percussion, some people call it string, because when you push the piano down, there's little hammers that hit, but what they're hitting are strings. So people are claiming, well, piano is percussion because you're banging the thing. Some people are like, well, piano is a string instrument because the strings are making the sound. So I guess it's kind of how you look at it, because you'll have arguments about that one forever. Now, before I go, some people may have noticed there's one more instrument back here in the back. This is a theremin. Now, a theremin is an electronic instrument, and it's very interesting how it creates its sound. And we will talk about that some other time. For now, stay safe, stay healthy, and hopefully I'll see you back in the classroom if you're at Westwood Elementary.